Hi everyone, this is Ms. Tom with another lesson about exponential functions. We're doing 8.1.5 today, and today's main focus is to learn how does an exponential graph turn into an exponential equation. And we will be using a table to help us figure that out. Now let's review what we talked about last time. We've got the form y is equal to a times b to the x power. Keep in mind that the a value is equal to the y-intercept, and the b value is equal to the multiplier. So let's use that information to figure out what we have in this graph. Now, when we're doing this, I'd like you to attempt the problems first, and then when you're ready, go ahead and go over the solutions with me. So pause the video right now to try it on your own, and then when you're ready, we're going to talk about it together. All right, everybody, welcome back. First of all, let's go ahead and see what we notice here. So first of all, we've got a graph. Our graph is curving, so we know that it's exponential. Now, one thing we'll notice is we've got to figure out what the y-intercept is. And I like to say the y-intercept crosses that y-axis. So what we're going to do is we're going to figure out, well, the y-intercept in this case is going to be what? And I love using my southern accent for that. So we've got right here, this point right here, and that's going to be the point 0, 5. So if we have 0, 5 as our y-intercept, I'm going to also mark that on my table right here, 0, 5, which is here. Then the next thing we're going to do is we're going to notice that it has over 1 up 2. So we're going to go, well, since this goes over 1 up 2, a lot of people will think that this point is 1, 10 because it's exponential. We're multiplying by 2. However, take a look at the growth triangle. This is saying actually plus 2. So this value is not going to be 10. It's actually going to be 5 plus 2, which is going to be 7. So we've really got 1, 7 here, and our next point on the graph is 1, 7. Now some people might be thinking, oh, this is linear. I'm just going to add 2 each time, so the next value will be 9. That would be correct if the graph was a straight line. However, you're going to notice it's not a straight line. It is a curve. Therefore, this answer of adding 2 each time is incorrect. So what are we going to do? Well, we need to figure out 5 times some number will be 7. So how do we figure that out? Well, it's hard to figure that out off the top of our head, but we can just do the opposite of multiplication, and the opposite of multiplication is division. If we do 7 divided by 5, we're going to get 1.4, also known as 1 4/10, and that's actually going to be our multiplier. That's what we're multiplying by each time. So we're going to multiply by, again, another 1.4. So we're going to go 7 times 1.4 is going to be 9.8. So we've got our next value, which is going to be 9 8/10. That means that at point 2, we've got 9.8. Now, how do we go backwards? Something times 1 4/10 will equal to 5. Let's figure out what that is. 5, well, what's the opposite of multiplication? Well, we know that's division, but we need to figure out some number times 1.4 will be 5. So we've got to do 5 divided by 1.4, which is 3.57. If we round to the nearest hundredth, we're going to go 3.57. So we have that. We've got our y value, which is 3.57. Then we go 1, -1, and 3.57, or 3 57/100ths. We're going to write our equation now. What is our equation? Well, our equation says we have our y value, our output is going to be equal to, what's our input, or what's our y-intercept? Our y-intercept is 5. Then we write down our b value being 1.4 or 1 4/10, and that's going to be raised to the x power. This is how we do exponential equations from a graph to an equation. Alrighty, let's go over the next one here. Once again, we're going to notice a couple of things. First of all, this is exponential. We know that because it's curving in an exponential way. This case, it's actually going from large numbers to small numbers, so it's not increasing, it is decreasing. Like I mentioned before, a great thing to do in noticing patterns on a graph is noticing the y-intercept. And what do we notice the y-intercept is going to be? Well, in this case, we're going to go ahead and notice that this is 0.40. Since that's 0.40, we go from -1, 120 to 0.40. So I'm going to just go ahead and write that on the table to see what we notice. How does 120 become 40? Well, isn't 40 times 3 equal to 120? So on this case, well, how does 120 become 40? Well, if we divide it by 3, it's equal to 40, isn't it? And isn't dividing by 3 the same as multiplying by 1/3? It's multiplying by the reciprocal, right? So if we just multiply this by 1/3, we're actually going to get the multiplier. So we're going to continue on and multiply this by 1/3. So we're going to take a look at our calculator and go 40 divided by 3, which is going to be 13.3 repeating. All right, so you're going to write that 13.3 repeating, or 13 with 3 is a vinculum. All right, and I have not been writing in the y value, so I'm going to do that. Then we're going to again multiply by 1/3. Remember, multiplying by 1/3 is the same thing as dividing by 3, like we mentioned earlier. Again, divide by 3, 4 and 44/100ths. Repeating. And now we have all the information that we need to solve this problem. So, what is the equation? Well, the equation is y is equal to, what is the a value, also known as the y-intercept? The y-intercept was 40. What was the multiplier? The multiplier was 1/3 each time, and that's going to be raised to the, it's going to be raised to the x power. We've got it. All right, and then finally, let's go over the last question together. It's another exponential question. It's this time it is increasing in value. Once again, what do you notice? We notice the y-intercept. What is going to be the y-intercept? Well, take a look here. This is 0.40. Okay, or 0.40. I don't know where I said that. Oh, that's from the other case. 0.7. So you're going to write 0.7, and I'm going to do this in verde or green. Okay, and then what do we notice? We notice, oh, this time it's giving us the third term. The third term is 356. So you're going to go, the third term is 356. And then we got to figure out, what? How do we go from 7 to 56? What happens here? I know we're adding by a large amount. Well, what is happening? What are we multiplying by? How does 7 become 56? Well, if I multiply by 8, I know that's going to be equal to 56. And going from 0 to 3, that's 3 terms. So how we actually do this is, if you know that's supposed to be multiplying by some amount, we got to figure out, well, how do we make 8 if we've got 3 places to jump? So a way to think about that is, because we're moving from 3 as our number of figure numbers and 8 is how much it's jumping by, you really need to just find out what the cube root of 8 is. The reason for that is because you want to figure out some number times itself 3 times is going to be equal to 8, and that some number is what? Cube root of 8 is going to be 2. So let's check that. Let's see if that math works out. So if we multiply this value by 2, we're going to get 14. If we multiply this value by 2, we're going to get 28. And so let's see, do we get 56 if we multiply by this by 2? Yes. So you can see that by doing the cube root of 8, we figured out those 3 numbers that we had to multiply over and over to get 8 was 2. And then we're going to figure out, okay, some number times 2 is equal to 7. Now keep in mind that some number is simply the opposite of multiplication by 2, which would be dividing by 2. So we just go 7 divided by 2, which is 3.5, or 3 5/10. And voila, we've got all of our answers. And now we're ready to write down the equation. So what is the equation? The equation is equal to y is equal to, what is the y-intercept, or the y-intercept? It's 7. What's the base value? The base value is 2, because that's the multiplier that we had, and we're raising that to the x power. Alrighty, everybody, that was the end of the lesson. Thank you so much for watching. Make sure to be doing your homework, and here is the closure question. If I was going too fast, please make sure to pause the video, go back, review. You got this.